Hi there, Alison here with another Cab Franc du jour. Today we're in Tuscany, and more specifically the Alta Maremma, and we're looking at the Ampeleia 2019 Cabernet Franc. The winery was established in 2002 by Elisabetta Foradori and Giovanni Podini when they purchased an existing farm in the hills of Alta Maremma near the village of Roccatederighi. They immediately brought on Marco Tait to run the vineyards as well as the cellar. And Marco is a native of Trentino, and his first vintage was actually at the Foradori estate in Trentino. So Ampeleia spans around 120 hectares, but only 35 are planted to vine. And of those 35 hectares, about 8, that's just under a quarter of all the vineyards, are planted with Cabernet Franc. So you can imagine my excitement and curiosity when I discovered there's this winery in the hills of Maremma that has this level of commitment to Cabernet Franc. And in fact, as it turns out, the vineyards here at Ampeleia have been planted to Cabernet Franc since the early 1980s, when the farm was originally owned by a Swiss couple who planted the original vineyards here. And since then, the variety has really thrived in the unique conditions here at Roccatederighi. So where exactly are we in Tuscany? Well, the region of Maremma is actually quite huge. It spans the entire province of Grosseto in southern Tuscany. The region covers around 4,500 square kilometers. It's about 1,700 square miles, and there's about just over 8,700 hectares under vine. So this is a huge region, and you can imagine there is a ton of diversity in terms of microclimates, soils, and terroirs. So to drill down even further than that, as I mentioned, we're in the municipality of Roccatederighi, and this is in the Alta Maremma, and this is in the northern part of the region. And more specifically, we're actually in the Colline Metallifere Grossetane, which is this subzone within this northern part of Maremma. And so we are kind of, I would say, about 30 or so kilometers east of the Tyrrhenian Sea. And then as a point of reference, the region of Bolgheri, which of course we know for great expressions of the Bordeaux varieties, is towards the northwest, just about 40 kilometers away. So we are sitting, in terms of where the winery is, we're sitting at about 43 degrees north latitude. So this is quite a southerly latitude for Cabernet Franc. So what are the moderating influences here? Well, of course, as I mentioned, we're very close to the sea, so the Tyrrhenian Sea provides a wonderful moderating influence. In addition to that, there's these constant cooling breezes that come through the vineyards from the north, from the Val di Farma. In addition to that, the vineyard where the Cab Franc is planted, which is called La Rocca, it's planted at around 450 to 500 meters above sea level. So we have altitude on our side here, and this gives us a good diurnal range in temperatures. So we have nice warm days and then cool nights, and this helps to slow down ripening as well as prolong the growing season. And then finally, the region here, specifically around Roccatederighi, receives a decent amount of rainfall, just under 1,000 millimeters of rainfall per year. And this is good for Cab Franc because Cab Franc does not respond very well to drought stress. So we have all these wonderful moderating influences here right around Ampeleia. So we have the sea, we have these constant cooling breezes, we have the diurnal range in temperatures, we have good rainfall here. So all in all, from what I could tell, it looks like a really happy microclimate for Cabernet Franc. Now, what about soils? I haven't talked about soils yet. So the soils here, specifically at La Rocca, which is the vineyard where the Cab Franc is planted, we're dealing with mostly clay here, deep clay soils. So we have clay in the topsoil as well as clay in the subsoil. Now, the topsoil is marked by 2 different kinds of stones. There's a schistous stone known locally as rocce di galestro, and then there's a second stone, which is a calcareous stone, which is known locally as rocce di palombini. And these 2 stones in the topsoil will help to provide a certain degree of drainage, but we do have that subsoil, which is mostly clay-based. And this is good because this helps to retain the humidity. And in particular, during the summer months when the area receives a little bit less rainfall, this will help to prevent drought stress. So this wine is coming from a 2-hectare parcel of vines that was planted in 2004. It's actually planted with clone 214, which is the Loire clone. And their first vintage of this wine was in 2014. Now, from a winemaking perspective, the fruit is mostly destemmed. They do leave about 15% whole cluster, and fermentation takes place in concrete with indigenous yeast, and it spends about 2 weeks on the skins, and they do a pump over once per day during that time. And then aging also takes place in concrete for about 10 months before bottling. So let's get into the wine. Now immediately the nose is now just starting to open up. When I first opened this, it was a little bit on the reductive side, which is not uncommon for Cab Franc. Cab Franc does tend to experience or can exhibit reductive tendencies for sure. But now the nose is really starting to open up and it's very perfumed. I'm getting some very wild brambly fruits, darker fruits like black cherries, a little bit of black raspberry. There's a bit of plum here. There's a touch of leather on the nose as well. And there is a really lovely floral perfume, like purple flowers, like lavender or violets. And the pyrazines do come through a bit more forward. I would definitely call this wine a bit more savory. The pyrazines, though, do show more like an herbal undertone, kind of specifically more like mountain herbs, like oregano. There's even a touch of bay leaf here as well. But the nose is very perfumed, very alive. On the palate, those same profiles come through bang on as they did on the nose. The acidity is really quite brisk, quite high, very vibrant. And the tannins, there's actually a decent amount of tannin here. The tannins are quite firm in the mouth, very compact as well, and which stands to reason, I think, because sometimes when I taste Cab Franc coming from heavy clay soils, the tannins do feel a little bit more on the compact side, and I am getting that here. And there is a certain degree of like a granular chew to the tannins as well. Yeah, that leathery note comes through on the palate as well. And there's a little bit of a kind of blood orange zest note, a bit of balsamic vinegar, and then there's a wonderful clove undertone, clove spice note as well. Yeah, the overall profile of this wine is it's very energetic, it's very alive. You can sense that there is this slightly sauvage kind of wildness about this wine. What's really intriguing though, that I'm picking up that I find quite fascinating is there is a bit of this sort of opposing forces here. There is a fineness to the wine and a sense of translucency, but at the same time, there's also concentration here. There's power and there's structure as well. When I'm tasting it, I can almost visualize this rugged, windswept landscape in terms of, where you see the rocky hillsides and the chestnut trees and the acacia trees kind of growing out of the hills, and mountain herbs and wildflowers and this sort of windswept, rugged landscape. And I can almost feel that when I taste this wine. It's a really wonderful introduction to the Cab Francs of Ampeleia. If you've had any of their Cab Francs before, let me know what you thought of them in the comments below. And of course, as always, I will be back again soon with another wine. Cheers.